We're headed to Buffalo. Josh Allen moved up to a tie for second on the tiers. Moved up
despite that play.
But one NFL coach said his infamous play against the Broncos is what's holding him back. Under 30 seconds left in the half, runs for a meaningless 12-yard game, fumbles, gives up a field goal in a playoff game to go behind 2 scores against Denver. Until he quits doing that, you can't rank him as a top quarterback. It's one of the worst plays I've seen.
Ever seen.
Cost him the game.
Yeah.
Did Allen deserve to move up after a play like that?
Look, he moved up from third to second.
Yeah.
I have no problem with him being second.
Yeah.
All right. But there's just nobody. It's kind of like we talked with Mahomes. You can't put Burrow ahead of him. Stafford, you could.
Put Stafford ahead of him.
Could, but he was the MVP. But again, not great against Chicago in the playoffs and 38 years old. I think they probably took that into consideration. Lamar obviously had a down year, and Mahomes, is still ahead of him. So I don't have a problem with him being number 2. And the fact of the matter is, he is phenomenal. Like, the dude is awesome. For all his mistakes,
He's awesome.
He's kind of like, I don't know if this is a perfect comparison, it's almost like a Shaq, where Shaq was so physically dominant. Oh, yeah, he couldn't hit free throws for the most part, and he, might not, be Olajuwon defensively. He had some holes in his game, but he was so dominant physically that it was just great. And Josh Allen is so spectacular from a physical standpoint that I get why he's ranked so high. You live with the mistakes. And I might cost him. We'll see if he ever gets past it for a Super Bowl. But you live with the mistakes because he's so great. But bottom line is, I'm fine with where he's ranked.
Can I show you this graphic on how consistent Josh has been?
Yeah, I'm very curious what it is.
Yeah, it's the opposite of your roller coaster.
Is it total
graphic.
touchdowns?
No. It's not this graphic, though, Dust, although I appreciate seeing this graphic. This is from 2024 and 25.
There.
So this is his last 6 seasons, okay? And these are composites, right? So at his best, he's had 13 wins. At his worst, he's had 11 wins. At his best, the team scores 31 points. His worst year, they scored 26. Total touchdowns, his best, 45.
His
Worst,
bottom
39.
one's not that consistent.
It becomes all about the turnovers.
Yeah.
At his best, he has 8. At his worst, it's 22.
Yeah.
And it's what the executive said. Hey, he'll do some boneheaded plays every once in a while. But that's very much in his control.
Is it?
Not.
I mean, certainly.
You know what? Let me ask you a question. I'm going to use
this game is.
I'm going to. You say that. I'm going to use without naming
a lot
names,
of years.
But I think we'll know who I'm talking about, and I say this lovingly. There is a. What'd you say?
Hubbard.
No, just.
Oh, sorry.
There is a legendary former NBA player who we all love as a player, and I think some of us know a bit of as a person, who does broadcasting and who occasionally gets brought up as like, hey, could we have him on the show? And the answer is, yeah, you can't, because you can't go live because he just can't help himself but to curse. He's just going to curse. He's great. People love him. But for our show, it wouldn't work because he's just going to curse. If I were like, well, he can just control that. He can just control it. Would you say?
That's a fantastic example.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And the answer is no, he can't. You would think he can, but he can't.
He's not himself if he's not doing it.
He's not himself, and then he won't be as special. He won't be as entertaining. He'll be thinking too much. He won't be himself.
He won't be free.
He won't be free. That's Josh.
I mean, okay.
Listen, I am in a weird spot here because I believe Josh Allen's second best quarterback in the league. He is ranked second in this poll, and I find it outrageous.
Where do you want him?
I think that if this was his last 2 years, that includes the playoffs, which is a little different than the graphic you accidentally showed, but we can show it. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't move up after that year to that year. When Matt Stafford won league MVP.
So you think Stafford should have been ahead?
Yeah. I think that when you have a 4-turnover playoff game that literally ends in tears and your coach being fired, you shouldn't move up. I think that unless like there's a bunch of retirements, like there's, and so Burrow was ahead of him last year. Burrow moved down because he missed time. So be it. Matt Stafford's sitting right there. And I think there are two quarterbacks in the league that get evaluated differently than how I'm used to quarterbacks being evaluated. And it's Allen and Herbert. And there is such in different ways, and they're very different players, very different accomplishments, so much of the conversation with Herbert is on hypotheticals and raw talent rather than accomplishments. Yep. That is odd for a player who's been in the league, is going into year 7 or year 8, year 7. And with Allen, in my experience with quarterbacks, when I was growing up, Brett Favre was Peter King, the great Peter King, would always talk about Favre in these like hollowed terms. And Peter King was criticized somewhat for that, for only focusing on the wow and not the league-leading turnovers and all of that. And it's like, well, as a quarterback, you got to take care of the ball, the stuff Tom Brady was talking about. That is how everyone in the media talks about Josh. It is always the great stuff, and the great stuff is tremendous. Don't get me wrong, but it is odd to me that after what I think most people would consider, one of his worst postseason moments with it as wide open as it ever could have been for him, that his standing only got enhanced. That to me is weird, that in the eyes of the executives that it was helpful for him. I think that's odd.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
I'm good with that.
You liked the KG comp?
I mean, it'd be great to have him on the show.
It'd be great. I love it.
It'd be great.
That's what I'm saying.
And Paul here,
Why?
and it lasts for one day. You guys can't do that. Shoot. It was good, though. Rounding out the top tier, Joe Burrow. Last year, he was tied for first with Mahomes. This year, he's still one of the best in Tier 1 quarterback. Stafford, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes are all different. But at the end of the day, they can single-handedly win games. That's a defensive coordinator on Joe Burrow. Brew, your reaction?
I just think, like I said earlier, that Burrow should be below Lamar. And Burrow, you talked about how we talk about Herbert and Josh Allen differently. I mean, Burrow, and I know you went last 5 years, Lamar's missed as many games, but last 3 years it hasn't been close.
That's true.
He's missed 16 games in the last 3 years. And then on top of that, he's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish Joe Burrow. But I'm just saying, Josh Allen, they had to go out and get a number 1 receiver. I know he had Stephon Diggs years ago. Patrick Mahomes, we talked about, he doesn't have the great receiving core. Lamar Jackson, regardless of what they just paid Zay Flowers, doesn't have great receivers. All right? Matthew Stafford does. All right? And Burrow does. So he's not winning games single-handedly. A lot of times, Jamar Chase is great. Right, he's right. That's the thing, too. Yeah. And so I just think that, number 1, I do believe if he's healthy, they will have a good season. I just think he's that good. But I think the fact that he's rarely healthy has to be taken into consideration. The fact that when you compare him to these other elite quarterbacks, has a phenomenal receiving duo. Yeah. That has to be taken into consideration. And again, I stand by. If Lamar Jackson had Chase and Higgins, then I think his numbers would be ridiculous.
Do you want
As the president of the Quarterback Wins Club, we have to go and fight a lot of battles out here. And this one I saw and I said, you know what? Give me my shield and sword.
Okay, good.
The last 3 years, he can single-handedly win games. He went 5-3, 9-8, and 5-5. Right. Those are his record as a starter.
It's on the Bengals record. It's his record.
His record.
In games, this Bengals record when he
played.
Well,
they won as much, didn't they, with Jake Browning?
Jake Browning could ball. When they went 9-8 2 years ago, he went crazy. He led the league in completions, attempts. He threw for 4,900 yards. He had 43 touchdowns. They won 9-8. So he had an amazing game. You're not single-handedly winning. You went 9-8. Last year, you went 5-3. And the whole thing is the defense is so bad, even the great Joe Burrow can't overcome such a woeful defense.
Right.
And part of that is true. He also scored 0 points against the Ravens. 0. And he himself said, no team would win with me at quarterback. So that's one game you lost by yourself. You only started 8 of them. Then you had this game against the Bills, which was in hand until you say, okay, we toss this one up.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And this is a pick 6. It's like, don't worry, Joe Burrow's back. Give me the ball back. Let's see what happens. Okay, Joe? Can you get the ball back on the next possession, Dust?
Yeah.
What happens? Back-to-back interceptions. Yeah. So there's a point where, and I guess I'm like this weird defender of the Bengals' Wolf defense that is not good. But it's not to the point where Joe Burrow is a flawless player and he just has to carry this. Sisyphean, is that who's got the big thing? Sisyphus. Yeah. Oh, he's pushing the rock. He's not carrying it. No. Oh, I got to do it all by myself.
Rand book, the guy with the atlas.
Yes.
Oh no, Sisyphus.
And I like Joe Burrow, but stop with even single-handedly winning games.
So the only thing that I agree with a ton of what you said. The thing at the end, I do think the defense is that bad, but the defense is that bad in part because of decisions that the organization has undertook that I think Joe Burrow wanted them to.
Well, yeah.
Joe Burrow wanted them to obviously bring back Jamar Chase, no brainer. Wanted them to keep T. Higgins. It is something I said 2 years prior. Get in front of this. Trade him for a first-round pick. If you've got a great quarterback and a great receiver, there was not that long ago a decent amount of people in the NFL thought Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the league and Jamar Chase was the best receiver in the league. When you're talking about Burrowhead and all of that, you don't then also need the best number 2 receiver in the league when you clearly need help on defense. So I think that is where I put, not an asterisk, but some of it. Sometimes he gets narratively, I think, the best of both worlds, which is these amazing stats. And you can't hold him. It's not his fault that defense allows points, but one of the reasons he has the amazing stats is because of the resources they put there, which could, is there a scenario where Burrow doesn't have eye-popping stats, as eye-popping of stats, the defense is better, they win more games, and his overall standing in the eyes of in the NFL media or NFL
he threw
whoever,
28 touchdowns.
Yeah, that it drops, but the team's better. I think that is certainly at least possible. I also, you talked about the weapons these guys have. I do think in Burrow's defense, of all these guys, he has had clearly the worst coaching situation. And I know that sounds mean to Zach Taylor, but I think Sean McDermott, for all his flaws, was a good NFL head coach and will continue to be in the future a good NFL head coach. John Harbaugh is obviously a good NFL head coach. McVay's great. Andy Reid's great. So I think that has worked against him. The other thing the Bengals have had, one of the great quarterbacks, the worst of, and this is where I want to throw it back to you, is the offensive line. And that's where I think a lot of these quarterback rankings become a ranking of pass plays gone right.
That's interesting.
Which is the more run-focused quarterbacks that we're going to get to in the next segment, like where Jalen Hurts is listed and other guys, don't really get any credit for the plays they save with their legs. And the handful, and there's not many of them left, quarterbacks that can't do anything with their legs, it's like, well, he's a bad offensive line. But I do wonder if, I'll use Patrick, certainly Josh, but we could even go lesser quarterbacks who were more athletically gifted. If they dealt with this Bengals offensive line, would it be as big of an issue for the team? Or would they be able to save plays? Is some of the injury issue the fact that he can't get away from a pass rush because of the lack of athleticism? And is that fair in how we evaluate him across the entire league? Because if we showed that, we talked about this the other day, if we show all of tier 1 and 2, There's only 2 guys that you would argue Burrow is more mobile than. Stafford and Goff.
Yeah.
He's, of those 17 guys, he would be 15th in mobility score, and that is becoming a bigger and bigger piece of the modern NFL, and I think that's a fair knock as well, especially if you think, like I do, that's probably at least somewhat to do with some of the injuries.
Some of them, for sure. I mean, I think he's legitimately injury prone, too. We saw that in the rolling out in practice, and he pulled his calf or whatever. The wrist injury kind of, I know that can be, he hit a helmet, but that kind of seemed to come out of nowhere.
Just quickly, kind of a tangent off of the Joe Burrow story. When I was looking up what he was doing last year, I forgot this story, so I just want to resurface it. When he lost that game, I think it was 24-0 to the Ravens. That was immediately after he publicly said, "I need to have fun playing football," and it felt like he was in a little bit of maybe an emotional dip. And remember, he was like, "Hold on, is he talking about retiring?" Do you think that story is gone, or do you think that story might pop up this year?
Look, I did not think he was considering retirement. I thought he was just going through a tough period and being honest and kind of speaking his mind in front of the press. But if he gets injured again and plays 9 games, 7 games, whatever, I think it would have to cross his mind because he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Or at least saying, get me to another team. But with the receivers he has, I'm not sure he's going to say that.
So what I would wonder is if he is if it's more a 2 years ago situation, maybe not quite as good of numbers, but he plays the whole year and they miss the playoffs again. Does he have a similar moment of clarity that a different number 1 overall pick Bengals quarterback had, at one point in his career, in Carson Palmer, of like, I'm not playing here anymore. Or does the organization have the moment that a different number 1 overall pick who had crazy numbers but didn't win a lot for a historically dysfunctional organization, the Lions with Stafford? Now, those guys were older in their careers than Burrow is currently in his, where it's like, it isn't gonna, we missed it. Like Burrow famously said, our window is every year I'm healthy, and hasn't sniffed a playoff game. I shouldn't say hasn't sniffed, but hasn't been in the playoffs since then. Bengals fans get mad at me but I want to be very clear. I think he's excellent. I don't think that he is just a lifetime top 5 quarterback if they miss the playoffs every year, no matter what the stats are. Right. But I think he's excellent. But I think that organization is very, very difficult to win with long term and big time. I think they might have missed their best opportunity. I think they've made some bad draft picks. I think they've misallocated resources. And I don't expect them to be good this year.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
Predictions week.
Put it in pencil, but I won't think I'll be having the Bengals as one of my 7 playoff teams. And if that's the case, I think a soft trade demand would be more likely than retirement.
Oh.
That's what.